Hey, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Mind Body Alchemy. Today we're going to go over the psychology of psychedelics. So this should be a fun topic. I'm super excited to speak about it. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Rusty. I'll wait for a few more people to get on. Hope you guys are having a blessed day so far. Enjoying your weekend. I know we got a lot of high energy from that full moon going too. Let's see. All right. If you guys could do me a favor, if you can hear me, go ahead and drop a like. I don't know how clear I'm coming in because of where I'm at. What's up, Catherine? How you doing, Rusty? All right, let's see. Hey, Rusty, I gotta figure out how to add you onto this live. So, let me see. Usually it's supposed to be a button on the live. You're just supposed to click it and it says you can be on the live. But for some reason, I don't know if it's a setting problem or something, but whenever I go to add you in, it's not allowing me to. So I don't know what's going on. Let me see. So are you using an iPhone? Or are you using Android or a laptop? If it's a laptop, I'm not sure how it works to add somebody in. So let me give it a shot. Because for some reason, I can add Catherine and other people. I just can't add you. Yeah, try on your Android. Try on your Android. See if you can pull the live up on your Android. And see if we can pull you up there. That might be better. What up, Sarah? How you doing? Good to see you. Always a pleasure. Yeah, let's try it on the Android and see how it goes. If you're just now tuning in, we are now trying to get Rusty on live. Oh, there you are, Rusty! What up? And we are about to get rocking and rolling. Yes, approve. It says adding at the top. Just set free from work. Set free from the bondage of mundane enslavement.
Oh, wow.
You're
Okay.
on! What's up?
Yay. Oh, not too much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is a week of being in cabins and mild sleep deprivation. So,
Oh, what have you been up to?
oh, actually, related topic. I've been at the training for, I guess, the week long and kind of watching MDMA assisted therapy protocols.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
cool.
yeah, have no idea where this is gonna go, but just the Mithoffers, Mike and Ann have been the main people doing the research and lots of videos of people being treated. Good results.
Oh, wow. So it's inspiring, right? You're seeing all this cool like content and this feedback you're getting.
Yeah, and then trying to figure out if that's going to fit in the real world and or at least in the Texas world. I don't know, how long it's going to be, but
Yeah, Texas is its own world, right? Like
definitely.
Well, I'm super
Ah,
stoked to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
of
And
course. And as long as I'm running at like 8:45 your time, I should be able to get boarded and all that.
okay,
So we'll just keep an
sweet.
eye on the time.
Sweet. So, just so for you guys that don't know Rusty, Rusty is a clinical psychiatrist, specializes in addiction therapy. So, which is right alongside all of this entire topic, which is kind of perfect. So, like, what started you on this path to like wanting to help people, heal people? Like, what was your like source of inspiration to even get started into psychiatry in the first place?
Oh gosh, long path. Oh gosh, but I don't, it's a lot of this stuff, teens and see how family dynamics are and got interested in like, well, what makes people tick, why families are like they are,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
things are kind of tense at home, all that good stuff. And then undergraduate did a whole science route, chemical engineering and math, and then decided to go to medical school. And of all the topics in medical school, talking with people, kind of listening, dealing with the brain,
yeah.
was most interesting, and kind of went back around to connect with that afterwards.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool. All right. It's funny because, now in this day and age, like addiction, depression, like they're becoming so mainstream now. It used to not be like that. All those things used to be very suppressed and kind of
oh
like,
yeah.
oh, just get over it, just deal with it, take this shot of whiskey, you'll be fine. But now it's like people are starting to see the importance of identifying these things and understanding them more.
Definitely, and the potentials for healing. So it's good. It's good to see healing as a path, and make efforts to go on it, and do what little we can do.
Well, what made you kind of take a left turn into like more of the psychedelic field from your like regular, straight psychiatry? What kind of made you like skew off the path a little bit into something a little bit more advanced and a little bit more futuristic?
Well, and I think in 2010 there was MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, had their first conference, and they had just started reopening some of the research into some of these substances as medicine. And Rick Doblin, I think, since MDMA was placed as Category 1 or Schedule 1 in, was it 1985, there was many people, psychiatrists or therapists, psychiatrists, who felt that it might have had some therapeutic value. In fact, it first started being used in a therapeutic setting, and then it got popular in the club culture. And so
Ah,
they started to work on trying to get some research to show, well, what can it be useful for, and then the research started to grow, and so that kind of got me interested again. Massive has had conferences, gosh, 2010, 2013, 2017, and they're just kind of moving on through. And through that, oh gosh, ran into one of the old psychiatrists that did LSD therapy back in the 60s, and then started doing some experiential breath work. So, kind of seeing his work got me inspired on doing some of the experiential breath work stuff in the Austin community. So that was interesting. And a lot of the breath work is kind of in the foundations behind or it has inspired the psychotherapy that's used in the psychedelic assisted therapies and the research trials.
awesome. And so for those of you that don't know what MAPS is, you should definitely go check it out. It is blowing up right now. I mean, On It is huge when it comes to On It's a big fitness company. They're very huge into donating the MAPS. A lot of cryptocurrencies are getting big into donating the MAPS. They're getting a lot of funding across the world for what they're doing. What So when it comes to these kind of therapies, what kind of results are the studies being published? Like, what kind of changes? What kind of clients are they working with? What kind of transformations?
Okay. And yeah, and quick side plug for MAPS. I think it's maps.org. And so the conferences, a lot of it, you could find the full the lectures either on YouTube in just MAP Psychedelic Conference or looking up in the MAP site. It's a little hard to find their site. But so let's see, this pop quiz on the research, because I've just started in enrolling in this program, this training program. I've been reading hundreds and hundreds of pages since March, but how much I remember, I don't know. But
Your brain's just like
so
just like wired, just kind of
yeah,
fried
it's,
from
it's kind of full. Yeah.
it.
Um, so we have several studies. So the one track, largely sponsored by MAPS, is the MDMA studies, and the main couple doing it, or started it, with um, Michael and Ann Mithofer, and they're predominantly researching PTSD, and it's gone from uh, what stage? Let's see if I get the stages right. Stage one trials for testing kind of safety in some healthy volunteers, to stage two, which they did pilot and long-term follow-ups, and the structure tends to, and it's grown a little bit, but tends to be preparatory sessions. So there's 3 90-minute preparatory sessions where people are educated and really kind of encouraged how to take the process, to go with whatever experiences come up, to be able to talk about it, and the also what types of things might be expected. And in a therapy session, it appears that, especially with trauma, that the experiences can be very different than when people are using in a recreational setting, where they're not paying attention to some of the psychological aspects. Then the therapeutic setting is an 8-hour session with music going through much of it. The person is encouraged at times to just lay with eye shades on and have the headphones on, and then when they have process coming up, to talk through the process. And then, although it's largely non-directive, the therapy couple, that's always a couple, will help kind of process the trauma as it comes up, whether it's physically or emotionally or cognitive, just help work through it. And then there's 3 after sessions, kind of integration. And in the later trials, there's been up to 3 dosings for the MDMA, and so people get that experience, and the results have been upwards of 80% resolution of PTSD symptoms, largely resolved after a year. So this is it's a very
Wow.
select group. It's a very, people can't have bipolar disorder, can't have schizoaffective, they can't have major medical issues that would be problematic, and so heart conditions stuff are excluded. But they're having really good results in this controlled setting, and I think they're setting up for stage 3 trials, which is right before it might become rescheduled. And I think they're going to be starting the stage 3 at the end of this year, ideally. So that's pretty exciting.
Oh wow. So you see this thing really starting to blow up now. Like it's really starting to take
Yeah,
off.
yeah, it has the potential. Yes.
You're kind of like a modern shaman.
It's I Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's kind of there's that inspiration. I think that the people who are doing the um, this type of research are respectful of the shamanic work that's been going on. That the breath work developed has inspired the sessions, has also been mindful of some of the longer term practices. So there's some overlap, I
Oh,
would
that's
say.
cool. That's awesome.
Uh, Okay, I'm reading these little comments. Unfortunately, my eyesight is such that I can't look at the screen and look at the comments at the same time. So if there's anything that really pertains, you can let me know.
Oh yeah. That's okay.
Yeah,
I've got bad eyesight and I'm young, so I feel you. Let me see.
yeah, I'm in the bifocal range.
I'll probably be in that age in the next 5 years. So I'm like, it's such
Right
terrible.
on. It's not
Like,
it's not so bad.
it's okay. Sometimes it's better that I'm not able to see good. I can see with my other eye better. I don't need to pay
Oh,
attention as
oh,
much.
and so for other research, and I guess this is also psilocybin studies, and I think New York University and Hopkins. And there's been studies for end of life anxiety, like cancer related end of life anxiety, or just many times cancer will cause severe anxiety about that potential morbidity. So that there's studies on that with good results.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
cool.
uh, Replication. There's a oh gosh, Walter Pankey in the 60s did a Good Friday experience with experiment which in a church setting measured mystical experiences with psilocybin, and they replicated that. And about 80% of people taking it, 80% comes up a lot, and that might just be stuck in my brain. So I could be off a little bit on the numbers, but that a majority of people taking the psilocybin had mystical experiences in again in the right setting. And what then they've done some research with severe depression. And the interesting thing with the psilocybin, but not with the MDMA, is that with psilocybin, if people have a mystical experience, they're more likely to have the therapeutic effects, and they'll have
Ah,
deeper therapeutic effects. And whereas with MDMA, they're not aiming. And I think people aren't encouraged to go in as deep. It's more directly dealing with the trauma stuff that goes on because that's the intent.
yeah,
But this might be 30% or plus people have spontaneous mystical experiences, but the improvement of PTSD symptoms is kind of unrelated to whether they've had a mystical experience or not. So,
I see.
what that means, I don't know, but it's yeah. On kind of a flip side, on it looks like at least there's some indirect suggestions that the mystical experience, the opening, the unity with the universe, might be therapeutic in some facets as far as dealing with the disorders of anxiety and depression and obsessiveness and stuff that we can get stuck into, which makes sense. It's
No, that does make perfect sense. And that's kind of, in my background, that's kind of like what happened to me. It wasn't really necessarily like me dealing directly with traumas a lot of times. For me, it was more of the mystical experience because it's like somebody drops you off a cliff and your whole life just changes after that. You don't look at things the same. The ego, who you thought you were, is gone. You're like, wow, there's so much more to this world. Then you become this kind of
yeah,
more of an explorer, an observer of reality after that, instead of somebody who's, being controlled or moved by reality. You're kind of like looking around and be like, wow, if I saw this when I was tripping, what is life like really like?
yeah. So I guess groundbreaking or transformative experiences, have that potential. It's especially again, it's our brains can go one of two ways under the stressors of life, and some people get locked into patterns of dealing with the world that may be functional in some at one time and no longer functional.
Yeah.
The what they're doing might be breaking down our bodies, might be causing disease, and loosening that up through whatever meditative practices or opening, that can have its potential. Of course, then some people are a little bit too open, and then that's its own challenge.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
on
the
the other
other
end.
that's the other end of the spectrum, right? Then you
Yeah.
then you're off into la la land. Well, what my favorite, and just my personal, I like how it shuts off the inner critic. I think that's the biggest thing it helped for me was shutting off that kind of inner voice that's like, that insecure, that kind of like self-doubting voice. It kind of shuts that off. And then when you shut that off, you kind of open yourself up to these other, thoughts that maybe you've been holding in, maybe you haven't been thinking about, and then how you really feel. It's really interesting how all that works.
Yeah, I mean that, and then of course on the flip side, it's like you get a lot of descriptions on some of these substances being generalized amplifiers, and so sometimes people can get into spaces where the critic is extremely strong, and so
Ah,
again, you have the kind of safety factors, where some people can have very very positive experiences, some either heaven or hell, and then the problem is if someone doesn't have something to work through it, that can have its own dangers, but
no,
it's
that makes perfect sense. So, like, what is your suggestion? Like, let's say somebody's at home, they listen to this. Like, what is your suggestion in regard to psychedelics, period? Are there any, like, specific safety protocols people should be taking? Are there any, like, things that they should be worried about before they jump into something like this or before they think about taking psychedelics? Like, what are some of the steps you would recommend to anybody out there?
And it's a, it's a delicate question. I think one thing it's, remembering that right now in the U.S. It's a controlled substance and taking that into account. And as far as research that's been done to a large extent, it's done in extremely controlled, environments. And so,
Yeah.
does seem, like with the psychedelic assisted psychotherapies, that where some people taking something recreationally might have a transformative experience, you don't see the same data. If you see 1,000 people take MDMA at a rave, the rates of transformation of PTSD are probably not any greater than not
Yeah.
taking it at the rave. And so that's one thing to remember. The set and setting. There are, you know, safety books, Fadiman's Psychedelic Explorer's Guide might, or some of Ralph Metzner's books discuss kind of harm reduction or minimization, as far as consideration of risks. And so I guess if someone's going to do something, it's really being aware of the cautions of the setting and of the potential risks. One of the articles that we read in our recent training was talking about is one of the exclusions of someone considering therapy, and this was back when MDMA therapy was legal. But if someone wasn't willing to experience any thoughts that might come up, even the most difficult they can imagine, they might think twice about doing the therapy. That was something that they wouldn't, so they'd have to be pretty much like open to all potential experiences, any even difficult ones. And
Ah,
so that's
okay.
another another thing is that integration, that having that structure, there's some extra risk that that's not done. So,
That makes sense. I could see that. Yep. So you said set and setting. So like I want to go back to that because that's super important what you just said. Like what what is set and setting to you? Like what is the ideal set and setting if you're going to take psychedelics? Like who are you around? Because at a rave, that's not necessarily the best place to go have a psychedelic experience. So what would be something to look for?
oh, and yeah, I mean, it's I think the things, and I'm probably not in a position to start giving recommendations, but set and setting, the things that being very familiar with the people you're around, being very familiar with your environment and safety factors, all of that can reduce some of the risks. So some things that if someone's in a position where they might have to drive, that is particularly can be dangerous. If someone's in a position where they don't know who's around and they don't know, it's like what else they've taken. That's particularly can be
Yep.
dangerous. It's if you don't know your people,
Yep.
that also can add dangers. And so and also intention. Someone's stressed out, time constrained, frazzled. It's really, that can affect the nature of the experience they have. And so, you know, again, Stanislav Grof was, one of the things he frequently mentioned. Some of the other writers is about some of these substances being generalized amplifiers of the
Yep.
state that you're in. And so, if there's, you know, oh gosh, and Stanislav Gross, LSD psychotherapy taught, just the huge range of types of experiences someone have, and one person's experience may be completely different from another. And so, just being aware of that is important. Some people might be pretty resistant to various doses. One dose isn't necessarily going to affect everyone the same way, even though some effects might be pretty common. Um, and so, yeah, I think that's at least things to be aware of.
No,
But
everything you just said makes so much sense because every time I hear about somebody having like a bad psychedelic trip or anything like that, it really comes down to the things you just talked about. Like who you're around, the setting you're in, how your state is. Like, are you in a bad mood when you go into it? Or are you stressed out? Those things are huge when it comes to
and then
taking these.
yeah, unpredictability. So sometimes a safe setting is kind of arranged, but there's some surprises, that definitely, or unexpected turns without someone guiding to reground. Those can definitely have effects. And one of the things that was asked about, if someone asked as far as the studies, is that they noticed with MDMA any of the, I guess, suicide Tuesdays, and in the studies that really wasn't observed. And there was a mention that possibly, as far as the dip into depression that people are using casually, part of it might be that issues come up that aren't worked through. There's not really,
Uh,
if you're taking a recreational setting without the intent of processing and working through difficult emotions that they come up, then if they come up, there's not necessarily a place to process. It kind of takes a shift of gears, I imagine.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Okay, I see that. That makes
but
sense.
so, anyways, yeah, I'm just thinking of like breathwork training, and that's the I don't know. Have you heard of holotropic breathwork or integrated breathwork?
No, I have not.
Okay. Yeah, there's actually I found out there's one coming up in Houston, a holotropic weekend. Oh gosh, when is that coming? I think in October. So I'll probably get reconnected. But I
That'd be
trained a
great.
little bit with it, yeah, with the integrative, and basically it was Stanislav Grof's kind of attempt after LSD became Schedule One to it, recreate some of those similar experiences. And so it basically involved deep breathing, intentional breathing, so slight hyperventilation for a little bit, and then provocative music. And the music, it's really a weird thing because the music can carry people into very intense experiences and some hallucinatory, some body experiences. You actually get to see things like people rebirthing or delivering children, that type of stuff, or just very strong emotional releases. And it's one thing, it's like with the breath work in my training, I probably went through 10 plus sessions, and every time it was different. It was a different journey. It's like no way to predict one way or another. So
That's
it's
cool. So this is
yeah.
without psychedelics or anything. You're just going into these
No,
breathwork sessions and you're putting yourself in these
yeah.
states.
Yeah, and actually, yeah. So the one coming up in October, yeah, I'll share with that with you later. But it's like it runs 175, so it's it's a little bit of investment, but it's worth the experience, at least one time. And if someone tries it, the main thing is just be open, because sometimes people go and it's like, oh God, this is really strange. People are acting strange,
Yeah, yeah.
and then shut down, and then you kind of like, well, you did get the full experience, but yeah, it is worth a try.
I saw you post something in Neuronosis. By the way, if you guys aren't a part of Neuronosis, be sure to look it up. It's Neuronosis, just so you can get more information from Rusty. She posts some really good articles. But I saw one you posted about the speaking in tongues,
Oh yeah, yeah.
about the spirituality of speaking in tongues and how it's like real and like mapping it out and like I thought that was a pretty cool article. I read that. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, and yeah, I just like it. And if you look at neuronosis, you'll notice that sometimes it's active, sometimes it's not. Mainly, if anyone finds articles that it in some way discusses the brain and spiritual activity, it's valid to post up there. But usually, so I'll run across them and go, "This is neat," and it kind of, but yeah, that it's yeah, I guess speaking in tongues, if I remember, not quite the same brain areas as when someone's having that unitive experience. So it's a different process, but still, it is an altered state in its own way. And I can't remember what probably neither of us can remember the brain areas is evolving. I imagine though it was involving probably verbal areas in some way. It's
Well, I mean, I
yeah,
thought that
I'll have
was
to look it up again.
well, I thought that was cool because like a lot of times we're very quick when it comes to, especially in this day and age, when it comes to religion and religious, activities, we're very quick to try to dismiss things that we don't understand, and we try to just put, oh, they're nut jobs, they're crazy. Like maybe they're onto something. Maybe it's not something I want to be onto, but maybe they're onto something. You know.
Yeah, I don't know if you can't drink alcohol, maybe switching in tongues is another good release.
so I
Yeah,
so
not to dismiss it, but
so I want to tell this quick story. So I went to a Pentecostal church one time, and I had never been to a Pentecostal church. And it was me and my wife, and we're standing there, and the preacher, he's preaching, and then all of a sudden he starts like crying while he's on stage. Like he starts like, "Oh God, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this in my life." He starts crying, and then everybody in the audience starts crying. Everybody. So me and my wife, this is our first time there. We're like looking around. We're like, what what is going on? And everybody's weeping and yelling, kind of doing these weird noises. And then me and my wife are like, all right, we got to get out of here. So we start bolting out the door, and we get around the door, and we're going to pick up our kids, and we go to open the door for like the baby kids club, and our kids come out screaming. They're like, ah, and they're like, and they've never done that before. They've never done that before. But it was just the funniest
so,
experience.
so so were they afraid or were they speaking in tongues?
I think I don't know if there's I don't know. I don't know if I can really get that one because I think the emotion was just so strong. The kids were just like just taken by it, like because everybody
Yeah.
possessed this. It was like this kind of hive thing. Like, and we're the only ones like not crying. And even the people at the church were like, "Are you guys okay? Do you guys get what's going on? Do you need like a coffee? Like, what's going on?" We're just like, "No,
Yeah.
we just gotta get out of here."
Do you need an intro course, kind
Yeah,
of to
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
speaking in
exactly.
tongues for dummies? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they need Pentecostal for dummies for sure. We
Yeah.
never went back to
I,
the church.
I got invited, gosh, when I was a teenager, and just speaking tongues started, and I just started to laugh, and I got the sharpest rib to the side.
He's
I didn't know what's going on. I was just like, of course, you're waving your hands, and then you get elbowed again, and yeah, I was not invited back.
I mean, what do you do when stuff like that happens? You're just like, what? There was no warning for this. There was no sign out front that told me this was gonna go on. This looked like a regular church. This is like a regular church.
Yeah, I guess you look up wiki on your denominations just to at least so you're familiar with the culture.
Yeah, I should have done that. Yeah, we should have done that. Um, Last thing, because I know you got to go here pretty soon. I don't want to keep you too long because I mean you get a lot of good information. What happens in the brain? What happens in the brain when you take these different psychedelics, LSD, psilocybin, MDMA? What kind of things are like triggered? Like, how is the brain different when you take these things?
Uh, my default answer is a lot, but let's see. So, um, serotonergic hallucinogens. So, indolamines, ones like LSD, psilocybin, predominantly one of the main mechanisms is some type of blockade of the 5-HT2 receptor. It could be partial agonism, but it affects the 5-HT2 receptor. I think as you get into some of the ones that are a little bit more stimulating, you can get also some norepinephrine involvement, and I'm trying to think of this, but mainly the serotonin receptor is affected, and so in part, what that does would be to you have um, front area of the brain on the underside, which kind of gosh, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which in part, if I remember, plays a role in organizing, and it loosens up. It's not quite so active, and the overall default mode of the brain gets a little bit less active, and so with that you get increased interconnections in areas of the brain that aren't there. And so there's associations that might come up, feelings can come up. There might, you can get connections anywhere from like how you hear things, combination of senses, the synesthesia, um, visual patterns are, not quite as organized. And for that's mostly with the serotonin effect. With MDMA, you also get from our serotonin release facilitated. So in some ways, the same way that an amphetamine can release dopamine, norepinephrine from the neurons, MDMA does more so with serotonin. Uh, and you also get an increase of oxytocin, which can be important in that sense of attachment. Oxytocin goes up after birth and during breastfeeding and things like that. So that's another component of the MDMA, and that's one of the reasons why MDMA was chosen in part for post-traumatic stress disorder, is that there's a general shift in perceiving things from being, I guess, seen as less threatening than they otherwise would be. And so things can be looked at without it being as alarming, without it being as activating.
Ah, that's
Um,
awesome. I see. So you're changing the association of things in your mind as you're taking these things.
yeah, and people can deal with difficult topics without it being as re-traumatizing as if they're dealing with it without the aid of the medicine.
Wow. So it's literally repatterning and reorganizing everything, how your brain fires off. So that way, when you look at these situations, you don't have that emotional attachment to it like you normally would.
Yeah, and I guess it does that during the experience, and then though it allows someone to make those new connections in the therapy. And so I think if someone, again, someone took it even in the therapeutic environment and said just do whatever, and there was no processing of traumas or no discussion of it, my imagination is that the therapeutic action wouldn't really happen to the extent as if someone's actually going through or processing in some ways the traumatic events that come up.
So no matter what,
So it,
you have to be led. You have to kind of be led into these
and it's
associates.
non-direct, or have the supports there to have the supports there to actually process and work through the traumatic events, because you don't necessarily, it's the approach is considered non-directive, and
Okay.
so associations come up, but it is, if someone went for 4 hours and talked about everything superficial, didn't mention the issues that they came in to work on, then it might be mentioned. It's like, well, you came in and this was the intention of the work. What might happen if you thought about that or just reflected on that, and considering looking at that for a while and seeing what came up. So, I mean, it's not entirely non-directive.
Okay, I see. But the intention is what really sets it up, right? So it's like
Yeah,
setting the
yeah.
space, the intention, and you kind of just let it flow at that point once the intention is set, and then you kind of guide as they flow through their trip, sort of, correct? Sort of like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And where
I
do you
think that's good enough.
I don't think I could ever get on your level, but but that's really awesome to hear that stuff is really going on right now because, it's better to be in a therapeutic setting than it would be to be out on the streets or partying at somebody's house
Yeah.
or trying to self-medicate, because that's where things get really dangerous.
I think that, it's one of the challenges is, you know as far as safety. So someone who is pretty much, worried well, someone that doesn't have a lot of issues and they're pretty integrated, and the risk of use without guidance might be one thing. But if someone's, it's, I think, if someone's saying, oh, well, I have severe post-traumatic stress disorder, I think I'm going to take that. Yeah, I think that the risks are substantially higher of taking it without the guidance to get through really difficult spots. And so I think that's something to consider. Again, you have, and maybe the benefits are less and the risks might be less if someone's using recreation and wasn't going to look at those traumatic stuff. But there's, it, yeah, I think that it's good to remember the therapeutic setting is, in the therapeutic use, seems to be a completely different beast, from the recreational use.
Do
And
you feel like they both kind of have their part in society in a way?
well, hmm. Yeah, it
Without saying yes or no, you could say maybe. I know you.
yeah.
I
I
know
mean,
I don't want to
I
put you on the
think
fence.
right. And the one thing is there is recreational use going on. And so, you know, part of my if someone's going to use recreationally, then consideration of the full range of possibilities and doing so being mindful of the potentials and also trying to minimize making stupid choices is probably a good idea.
Okay, so
So
so as we spread awareness, that'll help in this kind of situation. As more people are aware, it's better that people are aware of these things, and then kind of decide from there than it is to just I'm hanging out at a friend's house. My friend's got some
yeah,
stuff. I'm gonna take it. I don't really know what it is. So I think now
yeah,
we're
and
starting to become more aware.
that's kind of having a sense of the risks and benefits, not mistaking, taking in a shamanistic or medicinal venue of saying, well, that's the same thing as taking it in a recreational venue. That knowing that those are different activities, and then I think that's education is a good thing,
And
being as much as possible.
where do you see this going? Because I know I don't want to leave you here too. I got a few more minutes before you have to catch your flight. So where do you see this going in the next 5-10 years with maps,
Oh,
with
yeah.
any of this research?
So the MDMA is probably going to enter stage three, first, and that's going to be. And there's actually some talk about potential availability of expanded access, which is just setting up clinics that are very tightly regulated, but to allow more people to get the treatment while they're going through their stage three studies. With that, the limitations of use will probably be to people with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, um, treatment resistant in general. And so I've already tried therapies that have not worked or medications that have not worked. And then watching closely, going through exactly the same protocol and type of treatment. So that's probably something that, that type of availability might come in maybe in the next year, start to, or the next couple of years. Probably be,
Wow.
yeah. And I'm thinking 5 years before it gets past that into rescheduling, which I imagine is still going to be pretty tightly regulated. But we'll just have to see. Psilocybin, from what I understood, is kind of neck and neck with the research for a while, but it's not at that point, and so there's more studies to go, and it's gearing towards potential into a general population. You know, to what extent the effect size is the same. And once the control of who's actually being given the medicine, and once the skill sets, are broader, because the people who are doing this research now kind of, are masters in the work that they do. And the medicines might be a little bit forgiving, if you're not
Yeah.
being abusive in the therapy, but, it's hopefully people get trained to the level of being able to work along the same vein of what's been done. Um, so we'll see. And,
Well, that all sounds really
it-
hopeful. I mean, honestly,
yeah,
considering, the time span we spent not having this stuff available for therapeutic use compared to the time we're in now, like it's amazing, like how far we've come, and we've really evolved.
yeah. I think, and one of the things is that people doing the research right now are being very mindful of wanting to do it right, and wanting to explore fully both the benefits and potential side effects and consequences, not, what, in a way, not, quote, make the same mistakes as in the 60s when everything got shut down. They don't want
Yep.
to see the entire field. If there is benefit to be had, and it looks like there is in the right settings, they don't want to see everything shut down and not be available for another 25 to 50 years. And so,
Okay, I see.
yeah. So we'll see. It's
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
let's see. I probably should run to my gate in just a moment. So, anything else?
No, I really appreciate you, and I would love to see that breathwork workshop you were talking about. That sounds really cool.
That sounds, and yeah, we'll have to talk more about that later because I was, I would not be able to, I was trained in integrated breath where I just don't have a co-facilitator. So I'll talk to the people that trained me to see what would be reasonable. Maybe I could set up for something for a small group, just kind of an
Ah,
experiential process sometime. But yeah, I'll have to talk with my supervisors in it first and kind of see what they think about it, especially if I don't have a trained co-facilitator.
oh,
So.
that would be great. I would love that. Oh man.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Just in my spare time. Yeah. But
I know. You don't have many minutes to spare.
yeah, yeah. Who needs sleep, right? So
uh,
just out of curiosity, I didn't see I couldn't see all the. Were there many questions or not so much?
um, let me see.
It looked like a couple of people are watching.
No, I don't think there were any questions. I think that was pretty much it. I don't.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I will probably check if there's you know check the messaging later on it and just.
Yeah,
But okay,
I'll go ahead and post this video in the group. So if anybody does have any questions, they can reply on the video. That way they can reply directly to you, and you can see if anybody has anything. But I think it was really good talk. I appreciate it. I learned a lot. Thanks a lot.
okay. Well, good. I'm glad it went well. So my first well, not public, but my first discussion on this work. So
Awesome. Well, we really
all right.
appreciate you, and thank you for all your work you do.
Well, thanks. Thanks. You too. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.